They say the happiest couples never see it coming. That's the lie I believed right up until the night my husband flinched like I'd pulled a gun on him just because I reached for his phone. Let me ask you something real quick. How well do you actually know the person sleeping next to you? Because 5 minutes before I discovered the truth, I would have bet my entire life on the wrong answer. Mark and I were that couple, the one people used as a reference. Why can't you be more like Sarah and Mark? 4 years married, 7 years together. No messy drama, no screaming match, no suspicious exes blowing up phones at 2 a.m. He worked in finance, wore tailored suits, remembered anniversaries without reminders, and brought flowers home on random Tuesdays like it was nothing. Everyone loved him. Especially his family, especially his younger brother. Dave worshiped Mark. I'm not exaggerating. To Dave, Mark wasn't just a big brother, he was a blueprint. Career, confidence, marriage. Dave wanted all of it, and now he was finally getting his moment. He was engaged to Emily, the kind of woman who fits seamlessly into the family like she'd been custom designed for it. Sweet, polished, beautiful in that effortless way. Emily and I got close, fast dress shopping, late night wedding planning calls, inside jokes. We were supposed to be dissimilar, we were supposed to be family, and for a long time, it really felt like it. 6 months before the wedding, everything still looked perfect from the outside. Sunday dinners, group texts blowing up with wedding countdowns. Mark was the proud best man, practicing his speech in the mirror like this was his Super Bowl moment. If you'd asked me then whether I trusted my husband, I would have laughed in your face. That's why the first crack didn't register as danger. It registered as an inconvenience. Mark started coming home late. Traffic was bad late. I'm talking about midnight. 1 a.m. 2 a.m. He always had an excuse, locked and loaded. Mergers, emergency calls, last-minute clients who only trusted him. He smelled like stale coffee and stress. His eyes were tired. And because I loved him, I told myself he was grinding for our future. The second crack was quieter. His phone. Mark used to leave it everywhere. Kitchen counter, couch cushion, bathroom sink. Suddenly, it became an extension of his body. Bathroom breaks, with the door locked. The screen angled away from me. Volume permanently on silent. One night, his phone buzzed on the nightstand while he was brushing his teeth. I reached over to silence it, barely even thinking. He lunged, not aggressively, desperately. His hand wrapped around my wrist so fast it startled both of us. His eyes were wide, panicked, like a deer in headlights. "Don't touch that!" he snapped. There it was, that split-second slip, the real emotion before the mask slid back on. He exhaled, softened his voice, rubbed my hand like I was the one who'd done something wrong. "Sorry, babe, bark stuff. Confidential. I don't want you accidentally seeing something that could get me fired." I nodded. I believed him, because trusting him felt safer than questioning everything. But when he fell asleep, that feeling stayed awake, that cold knot in your stomach that doesn't have a name yet but already knows the truth. The weeks after that felt off. Not dramatic, just wrong. Dinners where he stared past me. Conversations where I talked and he nodded, but didn't hear a word. When I mentioned the wedding, his mood shifted. He'd get tense, distracted. Once, out of nowhere, he said, "Are we sure Dave isn't rushing this?" It caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "Marriage is a big commitment," he said, casually, too casually. "Sometimes people get caught up in the moment." This from the man who volunteered to be best man before Dave even finished the sentence. I brushed it off. Brotherly concern. Nothing more. Then came the alibis. One Saturday, Mark said he was golfing with Dave. He kissed my forehead, grabbed his clubs, and left. 3 hours later, I called Dave to ask about a rehearsal detail. "Hey, Sarah," Dave answered, breathing hard. "You golfing with Mark?" I asked. There was a pause, not long but heavy. "I'm actually finishing a run. I repeated. "I thought you two were golfing." Another pause. "Oh yeah, we did. We just finished early." Mark already headed out. Something in his voice didn't sit right. Dave was a lot of things, but smooth wasn't one of them. When Mark came home later, I kept it casual. "How was golf?" "Great," he said instantly. Too instant. He tossed his clubs into the garage. They looked untouched. Dave's slice is getting worse. I crossed my arms. Funny, he said he was on a run. Mark didn't miss a beat. He sighed like a disappointed parent. Sarah, we played 9 holes. He went for a run. I went to the range. Why are you interrogating me? Then he dropped the line that ended the conversation. This jealousy isn't a good look on you. And just like that, I was the problem. That night, I apologized. I told him I was stressed. I told him I trusted him. I cried quietly while he slept beside me, already somewhere else. But something changed in me after that. I stopped confronting him, stopped asking questions. Not because I felt reassured, but because I realized the truth wouldn't come from his mouth. It would come from his mistakes. And the scariest part, the next lie I uncovered didn't involve a stranger. It involved someone I hugged goodbye every single week. Have you ever had that moment where you start questioning your own sanity? Like you know something's wrong, but the person you trust the most keeps telling you it's all in your head so convincingly that you start believing them. That's where I was headed, straight into what I now call the gaslight district. And once you enter it, getting out feels impossible. I stopped confronting Mark after the golf lie. Not because I felt combo, because every time I questioned him, I walked away feeling smaller, stupider, guilty for even asking. He had this way of flipping the script so cleanly that I'd forget why I was upset in the first place. A week later, I noticed a charge on our joint account, a downtown Italian restaurant, candlelit, expensive, romantic, the kind of place we used to save for anniversaries. Who'd you go there with? I asked lightly over dinner, pretending my heart wasn't racing. Mark laughed. Actually, I laughed. Sarah, that was lunch with the client at 9:30 p.m. I asked. He shook his head, smiling like I'd just told a cute joke. You're reading too much into it. God, you've been on edge lately. On edge, not concerned, not observant. On edge. Then came the kill shot. Are you hormonal or something? You've been different. There it was, the word, the ultimate shutdown button. I dropped it again, but my body didn't. My sleep got lighter. My appetite disappeared. I started replaying conversations in my head, wondering how I missed the signs, or worse if I was inventing them. Mark, meanwhile, turned up the charm, flowers, random compliments, public affection. He posted photos of us online like nothing was wrong. Date night with my favorite person. He captioned one picture. People commented with heart emojis. I stared at the screen, feeling like I was watching a performance, meant for everyone but me. The lies started stacking. He said he had late meetings, but his suits came home wrinkle-free. He claimed he was exhausted, but his energy spiked when his phone buzzed. I noticed numbers on our phone bill threads gone. When I asked about it, he shrugged. Work uses encrypted apps. It's normal. Normal. Another favorite word. One night, I tried a different approach. Calm, curious. You've been distant lately. Did I do something? Mark looked genuinely offended. So now I'm the bad guy for working hard. I didn't say that. You implied it. He stood up, pacing. I'm killing myself trying to provide for us, and all you can do is accuse me. I hadn't accused him of anything. I ended up apologizing. Again, that's when it clicked. This wasn't just lying. This was strategy. Every conversation left me questioning myself instead of him. Every doubt got rerouted back to my own insecurity. I wasn't being reassured, I was being managed, so I stopped reacting. I became quiet, observant. I started taking mental notes, dates, times, patterns. I checked our credit card statements, nothing obvious, to Clinton, which told me everything. Whatever he was doing, he was hiding it on purpose. Then came the moment that changed everything. It was another Saturday. Mark said he was meeting Dave to go over wedding details. I smiled, told him to have fun, and watched him leave. An hour later, Emily texted me, "Hey, random question, what color napkins did we decide on again?" I replied instantly, "Blush, I think." "Why?" "Oh, just checking." Dave's at his suit fitting and asked. My fingers hovered over the screen. Dave was with Mark, supposedly. I typed slowly. "Oh, weird." Mark said he was with Dave. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Huh?" Emily replied, "Maybe after he's not here right now." There it was. Another mismatch, another hole in the story. I didn't respond. I sat there, staring at my phone, heart pounding. 2 people I trusted, One lie too many. When Mark came home that night, I didn't ask where he'd been. I kissed him, asked if he was hungry, watched him relax, thinking he'd gotten away with it again that night. While he slept, I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. If I asked him one more question, he'd twist it. If I confronted him, he'd cry, deflect, blame. The truth wasn't going to come from conversation. It was going to come from evidence. The next morning, I ordered a small voice-activated recorder online. Nothing fancy, something that would only turn on when someone spoke. When it arrived, my hand shook as I hid it under the passenger seat of his car. I told myself I was crazy. I told myself I was crossing a line. But I also told myself this: I deserved the truth. For 3 days, nothing. Work calls, radio music, silence. On the 4th day, I opened a file labeled with a date and time, and the first voice I heard wasn't my husband's. If you're watching this story, tighten your blanket and hit the like button so YouTube understands you want the next chapter unlocked. That, and tell me in the comments, which beautiful country are you watching from and what's the exact time there right now? I wasn't ready. I don't care how strong you think you are. Nothing prepares you for hearing the truth when you've been begging your brain not to find it. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open, sunlight streaming in like it was any other normal day. My coffee had gone cold. My hands were shaking so badly I had to hold the mouse with both of them. The file was labeled with a date and time, Tuesday, 6:45 p.m. I clicked play. I heard the car door shut, then footsteps, then the passenger door opened. "Hey!" a woman's voice said softly. My stomach dropped. That voice wasn't unfamiliar. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a coworker I'd never met. It was Emily. I swear my entire body went numb. My ears rang. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped duct tape around my ribs. "Did anyone see you leave?" Mark asked. His voice sounded different, warmer, lighter, the voice he used to use with me. "No," Emily laughed. "Dave's at a suit fitting. We've got time." I felt my vision blur. My future sister-in-law, my friend, the woman whose wedding I was helping plan. Then I heard kissing. There was no mistaking it. No room for interpretation. No maybe. I ripped the headphones off for a second, like the sound itself burned. I wanted it to stop being real. I wanted to wake up. But I pressed play again. I listened to them drive. I listened to them joke. I listened to them talk about how hard it was sneaking around, but how worth it was. "God, I missed you," Mark said. "I hate pretending around them," Emily replied. "Dave is so nice. Too nice. It's boring." I covered my mouth to keep from screaming. They talked about Dave like he was a child, like he was something in the way, something disposable. Then Mark laughed. "He has no idea." Emily laughed too. "Of course he doesn't. He trusts you." That sentence cut deeper than the cheating. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was strategic. And then they talked about me. "Sarah's been acting weird lately," Mark said. "I think she's starting to suspect something." Emily scoffed. "She's harmless. She wants the perfect marriage so bad, she'll believe whatever you tell her." Harmless. I had to pause the recording. I stood up and ran to the sink. I didn't make it in time. I threw up, hands gripping the counter, tears pouring down my face. When I went back, I finished the recording, because at that point, ignorance wasn't mercy, it was torture. They talked about how after the wedding, it would be easier. Family events, holidays, built-in excuses. No one would ever suspect us, Emily said. "I wish I was marrying you," Mark replied. Emily didn't hesitate. "We're basically married already." That was the moment something inside me snapped clean in half. My husband wasn't just cheating. He was cheating with his brother's fiancée. They were humiliating Dave behind his back. They were using the wedding ass cover, and they were planning to keep doing it. I sat there for hours after the recording ended. No crying, no shaking, just silence, the kind that feels dangerous. I've thought about confronting them, about storming into Dave's place and playing the audio, about screaming, slapping, exploding everything immediately. But then I remembered Emily's laugh. She's harmless. I wasn't going to save them with a private warning. I wasn't going to give them a chance to lie, spin, or minimize. I looked at the calendar. 6 weeks until the wedding. 6 weeks of pretending. 6 weeks of collecting proof so airtight they wouldn't be able to escape it. 6 weeks to make sure. No one could say I misunderstood, overreacted, or imagined it. I wiped my face. I opened a new folder on my laptop. I named it Receipts. And that's when I stopped being a wife and started becoming something else entirely. By the time the wedding invitations went out, I had perfected my smile. That was the scariest part, not the rage, not the heartbreak, but how easy it became to pretend. If there were awards for acting, I deserved an Oscar. I hugged Emily. I laughed at Mark's jokes. I toasted to love with people who had no idea I was planning a controlled demolition. Every time Emily talked about the wedding, she glowed. She showed me centerpiece ideas, seating charts, and honeymoon plans. I nodded, offered suggestions, helped her decide between ivory and blush like I wasn't listening to her betray my brother-in-law behind his back. She trusted me. Both of them did. That trust became my camouflage. Mark, on the other hand, grew careless, not sloppy, just comfortable. He thought he'd won. He thought I'd swallowed the gaslighting and moved on. He started leaving his phone face up again, stopped checking over his shoulder. The confidence of a man who thinks he's untouchable is always his downfall. The recorder kept feeding me gold, dates, locations. Their tone shifted from risky excitement to arrogance. She has no proof, Emily said in one clip. She won't do anything, Mark replied. She never does. I didn't confront them. I archived everything, but audio wasn't enough. I needed visuals, something no one could talk their way out of. So I hired a private investigator. I didn't even flinch at the cost. Money felt imaginary compared to what they'd taken from me. The pie didn't need long. Once I gave him names, routines, and patterns, it was like pointing a camera at a crime already in progress. Within 2 weeks, I had photos, clear ones, them walking into a hotel, them kissing in Mark's car, Emily fixing her lipstick in the passenger mirror like she owned the seat. I added everything to the folder: screenshots, audio clips, timestamps, receipts. I edited it carefully. I wasn't trying to overwhelm, I was trying to destroy credibility. I pulled the cleanest quotes, the most humiliating lines, the ones that showed intent. Dave is clueless. She's harmless. I wish I was marrying you. Those weren't emotional outbursts. They were beliefs. Now came the real question. How? Exposing them privately would protect them. Public exposure would end them. And if I was going to do this, I was going to do it once clean, undeniable, and impossible to undo. That's when I remembered the DJ. Kevy, an old college friend, ethical to a fault, the kind of guy who returned wallets with the cash still inside. I reached out under the pretense of catching up and asked him to meet for coffee 2 days before the wedding. I told him everything. I didn't cry. I didn't dramatize. I pressed play. Kevin went pale. Jesus, he whispered. There's a slideshow, I said calmly. Right before the best man speech. Mark had bragged about it for weeks. Photos of childhood memories, fishing trips, baseball games, nostalgia bait. I need you to swap the file. Kevin didn't hesitate. You sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He slid my cash back across the table. Keep it, Dave deserves the truth. From that moment on, the plan had a pulse. The wedding venue was a vineyard. 200 guests. String lights. The projector screen is bigger than my living room wall. Both families, co-workers, friends, no exits. Once it started, the night before the wedding, Emily stayed over at our place. Bridal nerves, she said. We drank wine on the couch. She rested her head on my shoulder like we were sisters. You're such a good friend, she told me. I don't know what I'd do without you. I smiled and raised my glass. Tomorrow's going to be unforgettable. The morning of the wedding, I helped her into her dress. I zipped her up slowly, hands steady, eyes meeting hers in the mirror. You look beautiful, I said. She beamed. Best day of my life. Behind her, Mark adjusted his tie, grinning at our reflection. The perfect husband, the perfect brother, the perfect lie. The countdown had started, and none of them realized the wedding wasn't a celebration anymore. It was evidence, and it was about to be played in front of everyone they'd ever tried to impress. They say time slows down right before something irreversible happens. That's exactly how the reception felt like. The night was holding its breath. String lights glowed over the vineyard. Wine glasses clinked. Laughter floated through the air. If you didn't know the truth, it looked perfect. That's the thing about lies, they're always prettiest right before they die. The ceremony itself nearly broke. Dave stood at the altar, hands shaking, tears in his eyes, as Emily walked toward him. She looked radiant, pure, devoted. Mark stood beside him as best man, chest out, proud smile locked in place. When Emily said her vows, Dave cried harder. I watched his face and wondered how long it would take him to replay this moment in his head after tonight. But I didn't move. I didn't flinch. The reception was the real stage. Dinner was served. I made sure to eat. I needed my strength. Mark leaned over and whispered, "You okay?" Like a concerned husband. I nodded, smiling, knowing he was already dead, and just didn't feel it yet. Then Kevin tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "before the best man gives his toast, we have a special video presentation celebrating the groom and his brother." Mark stood up immediately, buttoning his jacket, confident, smug. He winked at me like this was his moment. The lights dimmed. The screen flickered to life. The first image was innocent Mark and Dave as toddlers, sitting in a sandbox. The crowd could. Someone laughed. Nostalgia worked exactly as planned. Second slide. High school graduation. Applause. Then the screen went black for half a second. Mark frowned. The next image appeared. It was a photo of Mark and Emily in a restaurant booth, her hand on his thigh, his mouth on her neck. No blur, no distance, no denial. A ripple of confusion moved through the room. A few nervous chuckles. Then the audio started. "I love you, Em. I wish I was marrying you." The room dropped into silence so deep it felt violent. Emily's voice followed. Calm, cruel. "We're basically married already. Dave is just safe." Every head turned. Dave stood frozen, staring at the screen like his brain refused to process what his eyes were seeing. Another slide. Text messages, dates, times. "I hope Sarah doesn't notice the smell of my perfume on you." A gasp tore through the crowd. Another audio clip. "She's harmless." Emily laughed. "She wants the perfect marriage too badly to question anything." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor, echoed louder than the speakers. I raised my glass and looked directly at Mark, whose face had drained of all color. His mouth opened. No sound came out. "I'm not harmless," I said evenly. Chaos exploded. Emily's mother screamed. Her father hurled a wine glass across the room. Dev lunged at Mark and punched him so hard he went down, crashing into the cake table, frosting and glass everywhere. Emily rushed toward Dave, sobbing, "It's not what it looks like. Don't touch me," Dave roared, shoving her away. As another photo flashed on screen, Emily and Mark entering a motel. Mark was on his knees, now actually crying, loud, ugly, reaching for me. "Sarah, please wait, I can explain." I didn't look at him. I walked straight to the DJ booth, nodded at Kevin, and walked out of the vineyard barefoot, my heels dangling from my fingers. An Uber was already waiting. I blocked Mark's number as the car pulled away. I never saw Emily in that dress again. The aftermath was scorched earth. The wedding was canceled on the spot. The license was never signed. Dave cut all contact with Mark. Their parents sided with Dave without hesitation. Emily's family disowned her publicly within days. Mark tried to crawl back. Apologies, therapy promises, tears, regret. Too late. I hired a brutal divorce lawyer. The evidence did all the talking. I kept the house, the dog, my peace. Mark lost his wife, his brother, his reputation, and Emily. Because once the secrecy was gone, they couldn't stand each other. 3 weeks. That's all their love survived in the daylight. As for me, I walked away knowing one thing for sure. The people who think you're harmless are the ones who never see you coming. If this story had you holding your breath, hit like. It tells the algorithm this truth deserves to be heard. And tell me in the comments, would you have waited until the wedding or exposed them the moment you knew? I then subscribe for more real-life cheating stories. Sometimes justice needs an audience. The story didn't end when the Uber door shut. That was just the moment the noise finally stopped. The real weight of what I'd done hit me late, alone, in silence, when there was no adrenaline left to carry me. That night, I didn't cry. I slept for 10 straight hours like my body had been waiting months to shut down. When I woke up, my phone was a graveyard of missed calls, voicemails, and texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Mark's parents, Emily's friends, even people I barely knew suddenly had opinions about my marriage. I didn't listen to a single voicemail. Dave was the only one I reached out to. I sent one message. No explanations. No justifications. I'm sorry it happened this way. But I wanted you to know before it ruined your life, he responded. Hours later, thank you for saving me. That message mattered more than every apology Mark ever tried to give me. Mark showed up at the house 2 days later. I watched him on the door camera for a full minute before deciding whether he was worth opening the door for. He looked smaller, unshaven, broken. When I finally cracked it open, he dropped to his knees like this was a movie. I messed up. He sobbed. I'll do anything. Therapy, transparency, I'll quit my job, please. I looked at him and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just clarity. You didn't make a mistake, I said calmly. You made a choice. Over and over, and you laughed about it. That's when he cried harder. Not because he loved me, but because consequences had finally caught him. The divorce was fast and vicious. The evidence stripped him of every advantage. His lawyer barely spoke. Mine barely stopped smiling. Mutual friends picked sides quietly. Some disappeared. Others apologized for never seeing it. I learned who valued peace over truth and who valued me. Emily tried to reach out once. A single message. I never meant to hurt you. I blocked her without replying. Because the truth was simple. She didn't mean not to. Weeks later, I ran into one of the wedding guests at a grocery store. She stared at me like I was a myth. You're braver than I ever could be, she whispered. That's when I realized something important. I hadn't just ended my marriage. I'd rewritten the version of myself everyone thought they knew. The quiet one, the accommodating one, the harmless one. Turns out, people only call you harmless when they think you'll never bite back. I sold my wedding ring, used the money to take a solo trip I'd always postponed for later. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped shrinking. And for the first time in years, my life felt like it belonged to me again. Mark lost everything that night. Not because I exposed him, but because he underestimated me. And that's the real lesson here. If someone is bold enough to betray you, make sure you're bold enough to finish the story. If this ending satisfied you, hit that like button. Helps these stories reach people who need to hear them. Drop a comment and tell me, was the public exposure too far or exactly what they deserved? And subscribe because some truths are too powerful to stay quiet.